All right, Larry Krueger here from the Krug Show, the Pig and a Pickle Krug Show, brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out in Emeryville and Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week in Marin from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m., and they're open Wednesday through Sunday in Emeryville, inside the Emeryville Public Marketplace. Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Well, the draft is coming, and we've had a lot of conjecture about the Niners and the quarterbacks and who's going where, and a lot of people feel like, oh my God, will it just end? Will it end? Will the Niners commit to Trey Lance or make a trade or do whatever they're going to do? Stop talking about it. Make it happen. Either put us out of our misery and make a move, or don't. And I think there's a lot of people that are like, just had enough of it. And I get it. I do get it. And yet I do believe that there is still, despite what John Lynch said the other day, a very distinct possibility that Lance gets moved on draft night. Why? Well, I think it's just as clear as looking at the board of quarterbacks. You have in Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, Anthony Richardson, and Will Levis, you have 4 quarterbacks that are projected to go off the board in the top 15 picks. And then you have another roughly 15 picks, and then Hendon Hooker is believed to go right at the end of the first round, that he's going to go 30th. And then you look at the quarterback board, and you say, okay, so potentially 5 quarterbacks could go in round 1. And yet there's probably 7 to 10 teams or more, maybe 12 teams, that are actually looking for new quarterbacks this offseason. So there will be teams that are still looking for a quarterback after round 1. Then if you look at the rest of the quarterback board, Jake Haener, they project Jake Haener to be a 4th-round pick. Tanner McKee is projected to be a 4th-round pick. Dorian Thompson-Robinson is projected to be a late 4th-round pick. Jaron Hall, Aiden O'Connell, Clayton Tune, they're projected to be 5th-round picks. And guys like Max Duggan out of TCU, Stetson Bennett out of Georgia, they're projected to be 6th or 7th-round picks. And then there's guys like Malik Cunningham and Tyson Bagent and Tanner Morgan and Tommy DeVito and Adrian Martinez and Holton Ahlers that are projected to be undrafted free agents. My point is that when the top 5 quarterbacks come off the board inside the first round, if that's the way it comes down, and most of the mocks that I'm looking at say that Young, Stroud, Richardson, Levis, and Hooker all will be first-round picks. Well, what if you're an NFL team that needs a quarterback and you get to round 2 and you're sitting there going, are we going to reach for Jake Haener? He's got a 4th-round grade on him. Are we going to reach for Tanner McKee? He's got a 4th-round grade on him. Are we going to reach for Dorian Thompson-Robinson? He's got a 4th-round grade on him. We're in the 2nd round. We're going to take these guys 2 rounds early? Or are they going to look and say, we can call the 49ers and we could get Trey Lance? So a lot of people read John Lynch, and what he said this week as Trey staying. I really didn't, because he wasn't concrete about it. He just wasn't going to say that he's likely to move Trey Lance or say anything that makes the fan base feel like they're going to pull a trade for Trey Lance, because I think every trade that potentially is even coming their way for Lance has conditions. If my guy ain't there, if this quarterback's gone, if these 2 defensive linemen aren't there and this quarterback's not there, and then I bet you there's 3 to 5 teams that have sincere interest in trading for Trey Lance. But it's all conditional. Nobody's going to trade a 1st-round pick for him. Not at this point, I don't believe. But somebody might throw a 2nd, especially in a draft where 5 quarterbacks may go in the 1st round, and then quarterback 6, quarterback 7, quarterback 8 are really more 4th-round graded quarterbacks. What's in between there? The 2nd and the 3rd round. Who's going to potentially be available in that 2nd or 3rd round that plays quarterback that's worth a 2nd or 3rd round pick? Trey Lance. So as far as John Lynch, I think John Lynch was smart. you don't get your fan base all hot and bothered about some trade that's not going to happen, especially if every team that's even interested at all is only interested in a conditional way. We're interested if Hooker's gone and this wide receiver's not there and this O-lineman's not there. Okay, that's not a rock solid deal, but it may be a deal come draft day. I really think that when you get into the meat and potatoes of the second round of the draft, 31 to down to 31 down to 65 is the second round, 65 down to 100 is the third round. You get in that second and third round area, and you're going to have teams sitting there going, should we draft Jake Haener? We need a quarterback. But man, Jake Haener's 6 feet, 207 pounds. Trey Lance is far more talented, far more athletically gifted, way more upside. All right, yeah, there's a little bit more risk, but it's a little bit more of a wild swing for the fences for sure. Haener would probably be a safer pick, but Lance might be the better pick. And if you look at it, Lance has got better arm strength than Haener. He's got more mobility and better durability, I think, long-term than Tanner McKee. I think he's a bigger, stronger, better-armed quarterback than Dorian Thompson-Robinson. I think he has a stronger arm than BYU's Jaron Hall. I think he has more athleticism and mobility than Aiden O'Connell. I think he's a bigger, has a little bit more stature than Clayton Tune. Definitely has a lot better arm strength than Max Duggan or Stetson Bennett or Malik Cunningham. Do you see what I'm saying? I think when you ultimately come right down to it, Trey Lance is only going to be traded. The only way he's going to be traded is if a team is willing to give the 49ers what they want in return to trade him. We don't know what that is. I don't think it's the Niners are going to be unrealistic. I don't think it's going to be like, hey, you give us a first round, we're not moving him. I don't think they're that unrealistic. My best guess is the 49ers are willing to take virtually any pick in the second round, any pick in the third round. They may even get creative with a player coming back in a fourth or a fifth round pick. I'll tell you an interesting name that I saw thrown out today that I think has to be entered into the equation. The Washington Commanders are rumored to be shopping Montez Sweat, the defensive end, who's a terrific talent, in this draft for a draft pick. They need a quarterback. They have Martin Mayhew as their general manager. Mayhew used to be in the Niner organization, knows Lynch very, very well. Would you take Montez Sweat and a fifth-round pick for Trey Lance? Is that enough? Would you take Montez Sweat in a fourth? A guy like Montez Sweat would really change the Niner dynamic up front. You have Hargrave, you've got Armstead, you've got Bosa, and it's a good draft for defensive ends. But Montez Sweat is more of a sure thing. He's an impact guy opposite Nick Bosa. He could round out your front four to be the best front four in all of pro football. So don't forget about the Commanders. And don't forget about the idea of a veteran player being added to this trade. You give the 49ers Montez Sweat and a day 3 pick, maybe they would trade Trey Lance for that. We don't know. Sure is interesting, that's for sure. But if you ask me, is Trey going to get moved? I think he is. I still believe he is. Why? Because at the end of the day, the draft board for quarterbacks in round 2 and 3, those candidates are not as good of players or not as good of prospects as Trey Lance. So I think somebody's going to look at Jake Haener and say, I'd rather have Trey Lance. And they're going to offer the 49ers a pick. My guess is it will be late second round or somewhere in the third. But it could be a player in a fourth or a player in a fifth. And then would the Niners pull the trigger? If the Commanders offered Montez Sweat in a fifth-round pick, would John Lynch say, Trey Lance is yours? I think he would. It's going to be a really interesting draft, largely because the 49ers have Trey Lance. He's clearly available, and it's just a matter of can you meet their price? And we'll see if somebody steps up Thursday, Friday, or Saturday and does exactly that. All right, hope you enjoyed the 49er video. Thanks for tuning in to the Krug Show on YouTube. And make sure you check out our title sponsor, Pig and a Pickle. They've got 2 locations, one in Emeryville, the other in Corte Madera. The best barbecue in Northern California, Pig and a Pickle. And thanks for supporting the Krug Show on YouTube.